approach is known as left page, right page. It's a really simple idea, very easy to implement, and yet the potential gains are really quite significant. It's actually an approach that I've adopted myself over the years with all of the Magenta publications. And if you look at the double page spread, you'll notice a very distinctive left page, right page format. The narrative of the book is confined to the right-hand pages, and the left-hand pages are used for a bullet point summary, maybe a quote, maybe a diagram. And all we're going to do is use exactly the same approach with students' exercise books. So they're going to continue using the right-hand page as per normal, but the left-hand page is going to be saved for a summary of their learning. So for example, at the end of a lesson, you might use very Magenta idea and say, what's the one most important thing you've taken away from today's lesson? Make a note of it on the left-hand page. Or, what are 3 things you've taken away from today's lesson? Make a note of them on the left-hand page. Now, as ever, with Magenta, think variations around the theme. So for example, we could say something like, 2 things you've taken away from today's lesson. 1 thing you're still not sure about. Or maybe 2 things you've taken away from today's lesson. 1 question you would like to ask me about it. Maybe we use different colours for those bullet points. Now, as a teacher, you'd want to have an input at some point. So maybe you say something along the lines of, the thing that I wanted you to take away from today's lesson was, and the first bullet point is identified by the teacher. Bullet points 2 and 3 are identified by the pupils themselves. Or how about the first bullet point is identified by an individual pupil, but the second bullet point is agreed amongst a small group, and maybe the third bullet point is identified by the class as a whole. Or how about we say something like, I want you to summarise what you've learnt today on the left-hand page in the form of a diagram. Or how about we give them a free choice? We say, what have you learnt today? I'd like you to summarise what you've learnt today on the left-hand page any way you want. 3 things are worth highlighting. Firstly, you are encouraging students to reflect on their learning. Now, that's a worthwhile thing to do in its own right. But secondly, as a teacher, you're going to get a very quick and a very valuable insight into what's going on in there. You'll very quickly pick up what students have taken away from a lesson, and more importantly, equally importantly, what they haven't taken away or what they've misunderstood. But thirdly, of course, what you're actually doing is teaching students to take notes. And in doing so, you're developing independent learners. As ever with Magenta, think variations around the theme. So we could be using the left-hand page to summarise what students have learnt during a particular lesson. Or we could be using it to summarise what they've learnt during chapter 7. Or we might say, use the left-hand page, what have you taken away from this particular unit of work? One suggestion, don't be too rigid with it. Not every left-hand page needs to be a summary page. I'd be using left-hand pages for summary of their learning as and when you feel it's appropriate. And then the approach becomes something that's useful and helpful for you, but also helpful for the students, rather than simply, something else we've got to do. So, left page, right page, minimum effort, maximum gains. Go play with it, try it out in your classroom, and have fun.